What's up, gamers? I have a simple question for you today, kind of a fun one, even though it's a completely fictional setting. And that is, do you think you have what it takes to survive the zombie apocalypse? Now, obviously, this is, like I said, a complete fictitious setting. Something like this could never happen. However, it is very popular in video games and in television. So everyone thinks about it at some point for fun. Some people play the video games, some people watch the TV shows. But could you survive the zombie apocalypse? It's always been kind of a fascinating subject. Like I said, it's in video games and it's on TV as well as other places. But once again, thank you for joining me. And if you are new here, please feel free to subscribe to That's Fair Podcasting or like the video if you don't mind to send us out in that algorithm. Or if you don't do that and you just watch this video for whatever reason you feel like torturing yourself, I appreciate it. But as I always say, I am Matt and thank you for joining me. But the zombie apocalypse, even though it is a complete fictional setting, is kind of a fun thing to think about. You've had, again, in video games, you've had it in television, movies, even tabletop games, which I'm a big dice slinger myself. I think it's all flesh must be eaten. But I think at some point we've all kind of made our own, which I'm in the process of doing. But anyway, on that note, I want to ask you, do you think you could survive the zombie apocalypse? In reality, I don't think we could. There would be survivors, mind you, but I think that these have got to be the most fleet of foot and the strongest mindset. And even though it seems like a fun, fantastical setting, I don't think there'd be anything fun about it. And I think you'd have to literally start with preparation. And by that, I mean, would you have what it takes to survive, and would you have things on hand that would help you right away? Let's start with non-perishable food and water. Do you happen to have that on hand? Because you're going to have to get out as far away from people as you can, because people are threats. They could be turning into these undead flesh eaters, or they could be turning on you. You never know. And you would have to have a large amount of first aid with you, because God knows you're not going to have hospitals that are going to be functioning that could take you or whoever that you take with you in, mind you. I just recently have been relocated in my job, and for fun, me and my wife Mandy have got a halfway meeting point. See, I live in Grand Junction, Colorado, but I have to drive to Delta, Colorado, which is about 45 miles every morning each way. But we have a halfway meeting point in case the zombie apocalypse breaks out. I won't say where because I don't want you guys to take my idea just in case any of you Coloradans. But anyway, we have a sort of a halfway meeting point. It's stupid but fun. What can we say? But you would need obviously non-perishable food and water. You would need some first aid gear and weapons. I would think camping gear as well, but weapons would be a big one because you're going to have to defend yourself against these flesh eaters as well as other people. We both know that the real threat could be the survivors. And now let's go into fortification. My guess would be you need to find buildings or something with a higher ground. I always do that when me and my wife play 7 Days to Die. I know, realistic here. But me and my wife would play 7 Days to Die 1.0 together. And we always find high ground. We always build bases and whatnot on top of buildings because, let's be honest, it's just a smarter approach instead of being on ground level where humans and zombies alike can all get to you. And you would need remote areas. I would think you would want to go to less populated areas, definitely. Be safer. Less population, less of a zombie threat, and an asshole threat among people. Because let's be realistic, when there is no law, you'd see the true color of a lot of these assholes out there. It's just the way it is. Let's go all the way to the outbreak onset. And by that, I mean it would be a worldwide pandemic. And what would you do if this pandemic, the zombie apocalypse would come on very rapidly. It would spread like wildfire. As cities of larger populations are obviously a much bigger threat. But where would you go? Do you have a meeting point? And this just, I know, guys, again, this is fictional, but just bear with me. It's kind of fun, I think. But anyway, you'd have to have a meeting point. You guys would have to have a place because, your cell phones would go down. Everything is shut down. And you'd have to have a meeting point. You'd have to have like I said, I already covered the survival kit. Let's go with social collapse. The social collapse would become just a total state of anarchy where, again, humans are probably a bigger threat than the zombies themselves. Zombies have one thing on their mind, that's eating the brains and flesh. Many people would be safe because do you drive with these people? Jesus. But, there would be so many people out there that would be a threat to you. You have all these people taking up arms, and I think some people are wishing the zombie apocalypse would befall them. Anyway, as I've already said, we all know that humans are a bigger threat than zombies. That's a clear-cut thing. Let's go with adaptability. You would have to get used to a new environment. You'd have to retrain yourself in a new type of environment. Gone are the days where you can just go to people's houses because the population is going to be decimated. You can't just go to someone's house and hang out with them anymore. The environments are completely different. Resources become harder to gather because resources are finite. I mean, you can't keep hitting up the same place. How many of these sportsman warehouses and Cabela's are going to get ransacked by a bunch of gung-ho people that are looking forward to this? And then comes emotional coping and a strong mindset. What kind of mental exhaustion would we be facing when we're dealing with having to be away in this new type of world, this new world where humans are so rare, but when you do find them, can you trust them? The mental mindset would be a whole different ballgame to try to get used to. And again, how do you cope? Other things I think also to consider, again, we'll go back to the remote areas. You would need, I think, higher altitude states. I think it would be a lot easier in the long run. I think with lower populations. You'd have to move to states that would have lower populations. Like, think of a Montana. I don't know if I'd go as far as go north to Alaska, but what would the H1 virus do? What would the cold do against the H1 virus? However, less populated states I think would be a smarter approach because, less population, less zombie chances, And again, wherever you go, fortify buildings as much as possible. In video games, you have, like in State of Decay, year one, you're boarding up you're boarding up windows with hammer and nails and trying to survive a zombie horde. But let's talk about what would be some of the best bases. Your number one base of protection, I think, would be a prison. You have jail cells. You have serious defensive structural integrity in a prison with these massive thick concrete walls, iron bars. Obviously, there's step one, not to try to rip The Walking Dead off, but they were onto something. I always felt hospitals would be good too, especially if you could close off the ground levels, all the stairwells and elevator shafts. Everything you can do to just close off the ground level and take a higher approach and find different ways down. The zombies, for some reason, zombies are smart enough to hoard together. So, they know that somehow they're smart enough to realize that larger numbers are better in defense. But they're not going to figure out how to make an elevator work. They're not going to get past a complete stairwell that's just packed full of shit, hopefully. So I would think hospitals, the higher levels, anything from level 2 would be higher would be a smart way to go. Multi-level buildings, period. Take the higher grounds. If you have a second and third story buildings, take those floors, take the top of the roof, take anything you can to block off the first floor. I would think that would be the smartest way to go. And let's get back to human interaction overall. Is it safe to interact with other survivors? Maybe you have some people with you that you can trust, obviously. You have a small community. You can take on some people, but then you have other communities out there. Can you trust them? Is trust between surviving communities, is it diminished given the onset of this new state of the world? I would think it would be. Obviously, surround yourself with survivors that could have some type of skills in your life. You imagine having a gardener and you're up on a roof. How clutch would that be? Imagine having a mechanic that can fix up, vehicles. Imagine having someone that knows construction, or someone who's a practice medicine, especially a doctor, a surgeon of some sort. you would have so many advantages to teaming up with specific people that have these specific skills. But in short, guys, as this is coming to a close, it's always fun to think about the zombie apocalypse. It's a fantastical, fun setting, but I think the reality of it would be a lot harder to survive than Hollywood, television, video games make it out to be. I think that, you know, with the finite number of resources out there, you would have to hit the mother load of mother loads getting a gardener. Your workload would increase more in the apocalypse than it ever did in everyday life. The odds are way down than what is let on. However, if you find yourself firing up a video game like State of Decay or 7 Days to Die, Resident Evil, Dead Island, all of these, stick to the fantastical versions of these, because the real life version, I think, would suck the big one. But that's really all I have. I want to thank you for putting up with this video. It means a lot to me, it really does. Again, if you don't mind subscribing to the page or the channel, That's Fair Podcasting, that'd be great. Like the video to help us. And guys, I've had some people coming on, late subscribers that have joined us. Thank you so much. It really means the world to me. And if you just watched the video, that's what I care about the most. Thank you so much. And as I always say to you gamers and geeks, all love to you, and I am outro.